Hey everybody, it's your boy. I know a lot of you know me as someone who, pretty nice guy, pretty chill. I make little fun parties from time to time. We do fun things like open decks for the community, charity shows, all that kind of stuff. And most of my videos are either promo or just kind of goofy stuff. And, I like it that way. So I think it's fair to say that when I got to make a video like I'm making today, some pretty serious shit's gone down. So before we jump into it, I do need to make a couple of disclaimers and a couple of requests. Number one, the person we're going to be discussing today, do not bully or harass this person. Yes, this situation has gone sideways 10 times over. Yes, legal action is being taken. But despite all of the headaches and all of this insanity, I am still willing to accept that this situation is my experience. That doesn't mean that everyone has had the exact same experience with this person, that maybe the planets aligned and I just happened to land on the absolute worst possible version of this person at that moment in their life, and as a result, I've had to deal with this mess. So again, please do not harass or bully this person. Number two, as I'm going through things in this story, you will notice there will be a publicly accessible Dropbox link wherever you're watching this. It'll either be in the comments or part of the post. Now, the reason for this is because one of the oddly unique things about this entire situation is that at the time of filming, this has been spanning almost 6 months. And during that 6 months, there have only been 2 conversations had with this person that have not been in a written format. There was a phone call in the very beginning about, is this something you can do? This is what I'm looking for, etc., etc. And that was it. The second conversation that was not had in a text format was when I had to physically go to the warehouse that he was building this, because I'd been ghosted for almost 2 weeks at that point, and it was 3.5 months into the project, and I had still not received a single progress picture or video. Remember that. That will be important later. Lastly, I would just like to reiterate again, this is my experience. I'm only going to speak to my experience. I'm not going to get into rumors or opinions or whatever. I'm only going to present what can be proven as fact. And again, feel free to reference that Dropbox for any of the things I discussed today. You may hear some experiences from others. Those are people that have had direct experiences with this same person that have agreed to share them with me. But I'm not going to address or speculate on rumors of things that someone heard from someone else and someone's. That's not what we do here. We're dealing with facts and direct experience. That said, let's get into it. Let's transport ourselves back to 2024, summer. Common Ground season was winding down. I was really looking to start planning things for 2025. Obviously, those of you who know me and have seen my podcast know that I've got a cool little setup here. My DJ booth you can see in the back is sort of a DIY IKEA thing, and it has served me well. I love this thing. It holds all my records for my vinyl collection. I've added some cool lights. It gets the job done. That being said, 2025 had a lot of things being planned that really kind of wanted to up the production value, not just here in the studio, but with a lot of things. But the DJ booth in particular was a high priority on my list. So I did what I usually do. I like to shop around, see what's going on, and then after that, see if there's a local option, because I like supporting the homies. I do. I think there's plenty of people on my feed that can vouch for that. So I did what I normally do. I put a post out on social media asking folks like, hey, if you or anyone you know does custom furniture, please shoot me a DM. Let's talk. I got a lot of people who either mentioned themselves or tagged someone else, and at the end of the day, I had a ton of contacts, referrals, at some point, offers, bids, whatever you want to call it. Enter Jeremy Smith. Jeremy, I will say, in the beginning was honestly one of the most responsive people out of everyone. He was very communicative. It felt like he understood what I was asking, and out of everyone, again, he was the most responsive. So we had a couple of IMs back and forth, and then ultimately when I kind of felt like, after checking our mutuals, like, okay, most of these people I actually know, and it's not just like a Facebook rando thing. So we hopped on a call. The call was actually over Facebook Messenger, because again, I don't know this person. I'm not gonna just give out my phone number, especially if we're not even sure we're gonna do business. So we have a quick call on Facebook Messenger. I tell him what I'm looking for. I show him some sort of similar designs from another company, and explain like the reason that I can't go with them is one, they don't really do customization, and there were some key features that I had built on my DIY thing that I really wanted to keep. He took a look at everything and was just like, oh man, this is so easy. Yeah, this is like a weekend project, maybe like 2 weeks tops, like super easy. I was like, okay, cool. Let me get some specs together for you. And, once I do that, you can take a look and we can see if like, yeah, this is still something you can do. And then we'll get the ball rolling. So I think over the course of the next couple of days, I put together a whole schematic for him. Obviously, I'm not in fabrication or even, construction formally. So it was more or less just a diagram with like measurements and reference pictures from other things that, for the features I wanted. And one of the things was, again, if you notice behind me, my gear that's in a coffin, this little white panel is a light up LED screen. It's not like an LED, like a computer screen. It's just a piece of essentially white opaque acrylic with LED lights behind it so that it lights up. The reason I like that is because if you've seen my live streams, I turn that on green and it acts as like an extra little space for the green screen visuals. Cool little effect, right? So I said, hey, is this something we can add to this new design? He did some looking and he was like, yeah, man, it'll be an extra, I think, $300 or whatever, but to the price he had originally quoted me. He's like, but yeah, we can totally do this. It's like, okay. So again, I'd like to point out, when he gave me the original price and then the new price with the LED thing, I never haggled him down. He set the price and I told him, sure, sounds good. Important. So I drafted up a contract, I sent it over to him to look over and sign. He was like, okay, this looks good. I'm going to ask for half up front for materials and supplies and everything. And then you pay the balance when you pick it up. I was like, yeah, that sounds fair. So I sent the contract over. He sent it back. He was like, yeah, everything looks good, except it says here in the contract that you can get your deposit refunded, at any time. And he's like, honestly, my policy is, once I start cutting on materials, you don't get your deposit back because there's no way for me to get my money back. I was like, okay, that's fair. So, I edited that in the contract and basically just modified it to where like, hey, if shit goes sideways and we got to, part ways, yeah, I don't get my deposit back, but, I still get all the materials back. He was like, this looks great. Signed it. I signed it. And I sent him the deposit, the half up front. I sent it electronically, so there is a digital footprint. We're not doing cash here. It's not my first rodeo. And that was it. He said, all right, cool. Over the next few days, I'll start getting supplies and we'll get this thing going. So over the course of, I'd say probably a week or so, he was very responsive. He checked in on his own regularly. He was just like, hey man, just a quick update. Like, I got this chunk of the supplies. I'm going to go get whatever the piece it was on this day, very, very responsive. Like, I didn't have to like ask him for anything. He was volunteering updates and it was good. I felt good about the situation. So about a week or two after contracts are signed and we've gotten this thing going, I notice he's posting pictures with a girl who I know. Now, out of respect for privacy, I'm not going to name any names. She has nothing to do with this situation other than this one little point. And, I saw them hanging out a lot. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I know her and I know him, Well, that very quickly turned sour. Jeremy doesn't post a lot. So, I noticed he started posting more, and what he was posting was very sad boy, like, I'm kind of going through like an emotionally hard, messy breakup. I feel betrayed, like stuff like that. And we've all been there. Like, no judgment. No, I have nothing bad to say about him going through that. Like, we've all been there. Knowing that, and also knowing that usually that there are two types of artists and craftsmen or whatever, the kind that when they go through some shit like that, they use it as fuel and really churn out awesome work, or they shut down and do nothing. And again, I don't know Jeremy personally, so being what I thought was the decent human thing to do, I reached out to Jeremy and I was like, hey man, I couldn't help but notice. At this point, it is noteworthy that we had become friends on Facebook so that, we could communicate. I messaged them. I was like, hey man, I'm not trying to get in your business, but I couldn't help but notice you're kind of going through some personal stuff at the moment. I know what that's like. I know that's really doesn't feel great. So if we need to maybe pump the brakes on this or adjust the timeline so that you can take some personal time to, like process, do whatever you got to do, just let me know. We're still super early in this, that like, if you tell me, hey, I just need to like take it off my plate, that's cool. We can run it back, whatever. To which he, if I remember correctly, he told me something along the lines of like, nah, man, it really sucks, but like, I've already rented the space to get this thing working on. So I think, I'm hoping that we'll keep the same timeline. Like, there shouldn't be a problem, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like, I'm still watching his posts and, yeah, I felt bad for the dude, but at the same time I was like, oh, I've seen this before. Like I'm starting to get like a little bit of a gut feeling here. That coupled with about 5 days after, well, not even, like maybe a week after I had sent him the deposit money, he suddenly posted a brand new guitar. But at the time, I didn't think anything of it, just because, hey, cool, man. We all have our hobbies. I'd probably post some new gear if I got it. So anyway, a couple of weeks after the breakup thing, I am now noticing posts from him about his living situation, which I would very quickly discover that I was also Facebook friends with his roommate. So I was watching that absolutely spiral in real time, just like the breakup. It did not go well. He was evicted, and again, I can say this because it's a matter of legal record. This is not an opinion. He was evicted. The person evicting him was awarded, I believe, a few $1,000s in the eviction. Jeremy was posting about it, and at one point was asking if anybody could like let him crash somewhere. So again, I reached out, like, hey man, I couldn't help but notice you're like really going through it, and that court didn't go great, eviction court. Are we? I'm gonna assume that we're no longer in line for our original deadline. Which, by the way, when we signed the contracts on August the 12th, the original deadline was set for October 5th. When we were drafting up what day it should be, and he told me this project was only going to take a couple of weeks, I said, okay, well, let's shoot for the end of September, because I really was hoping to make this a birthday present for myself. And he said, you know what? That's cool, but let's add in an extra week just so we've got some extra buffer zone. So let's do October the 5th. He's like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have it done way before then, but, let's play it safe and give us some buffer room. So, he does know how to do that. Anyway, jumping back. Long story short, it's clear this dude's life is just unraveling. At least his living situation, the relationship thing, it's just all coming apart. And I'm starting to grow increasingly concerned about the situation. So at this point, let me pull up my little list here. At this point, we've missed the first completion date of October the 6th. There was another the second date he gave me after the shenanigans here was October the 18th. That came and went. On October the 18th, when I checked in with him to see what the progress was, he said it was putting the finishing touches on it, but that it's going to be Sunday. So fast forward to Sunday, October 22nd and 23rd. I heard nothing from him. I tried to check in and I heard nothing. Now, I'm going to pause there and I'm going to say that during the breakup section of this, I very quickly realized that I didn't have this man's phone number. We had done all communication via Facebook. And during the breakup, and if I remember correctly, a little bit of the overlap into the eviction nonsense, he had shut off his socials. So, no, it was before the eviction. But anyway, he had shut off his socials. So I had no way to, contact him. So I started asking around to the people I knew were mutuals, and I got his phone number. And from that point on, everything was done via text and not social media. So, I'm texting him, just like, hey man, just checking in. What's the situation? Didn't hear anything. We're now October 22nd. On the 24th, he finally messages me back, and he's like, hey man, I believe that was around the day he posted about the very bad outcome he had in eviction court. And he tells me, hey dude, I'm not even going to be able to work on it until November the 1st due to the living situation and having to move and all this. I asked him, hey man, what is a realistic timeline do you think, for us to be looking at? Obviously factor in all the craziness, but so I can plan on my end, what do you think is a realistic timeline? And he's like, honestly, bro, there's a week's worth of work left if he can just get to it and focus. And this was after saying for the last month that there was only a day's worth of finishing touches left. So at some point he tells me it'll be ready October 31st. I was like, okay, cool. Halloween. Sweet. October 1st, 31st came and went. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So November 5th comes around, and I check in with him again. At this point, things are still cordial. There's no weirdness. And November 5th rolls around, and I text him for a check-in. He's like, yeah, I'm just getting to the shop. I'm putting a battle plan together. I once again request pics for an update because I still haven't received a single one. No pics, no further contact. November 6th, the next day, tried to check in again. Also requested some sort of picture update. Nothing. Now, I feel like at this point I need to take another pause and jump back to the very beginning of when we were talking about this project, Jeremy and I. When we first started talking about this, I told him I would, in addition to paying you money, not trade, but money, I would like to put together a really cool making of video. Obviously, because I love having the content for my stuff, but also it would serve as a really polished, almost promo video for him. And he could say, hey, look, man, look what I can do. And I told him, like, if you knock this out and it's fantastic, like, and you can give me the pictures and video to make it, I will give that to you as like a bonus, you know? And I don't know if anybody out there knows what that kind of thing usually costs, but it's not cheap. It's not, especially not for quality work. Shout out James Chapa and Adam Alcantara for your amazing video work and editing. So when we had that discussion, he was like, you know, I'm gonna be honest, like, I'm not really good at like photo and video. And I was like, you know what? You don't even have to be. All you got to do is every time you work, just use your phone, put the video settings on max, and just record yourself working for like a minute or two. That's all I need. You don't have to do any editing. You don't have to do any uploading. You don't have to do any of that. Just send me that and I'll handle the rest. And he was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. Like, that's not a problem. That's pretty easy. I was like, yeah, man, that's it. I'll handle it. I'll make it look clean and smooth, and it's yours. No charge, as a thank you for getting this thing done. So let's jump back to where we are in the timeline. So it is now getting to be almost mid-November. It's the 6th. I check in. Nothing. We jump to the 11th. Check in. Also ask for a photo. Nothing. The 13th. Again. Tried to check in. Asked for a photo. Some kind of update. Nothing. November 16th was the newly revised due date. That comes and goes. Failed to meet it. So it is now November 18th. I start asking some of the people that I know that are mutuals if they know what's going on with him. Because at this point, I'm feeling ghosted. It's been 10 or 11 days. And like radio silence. And I'm getting a little nervous. So I start asking mutuals for updates, you know, like, hey, do you know where this guy even is? Like, I know he had this whole living situation. I'm feeling a little nervous about stuff. And at one point, I even reach out to the old roommate and I ask him, hey, I'm not trying to get in the middle of y'all's deal, but like, do you know if he was ever working on like a DJ table or anything? And his roommate, who, again, I'm not going to name names of anyone out of privacy, told me, he's like, well, he was using my garage as a workshop, and that was a whole nightmare. He's like, but the only thing I ever saw him working on was some giant picture frame for 6 months. Other than that, he's like, I didn't see anything that looked like a DJ table or a table, period. He's like, that's not to say maybe he has another location, but I never saw anything. So I'm like, great. But to be fair, when I had asked Jeremy during his eviction thing, he did say that I shouldn't worry because my project was at another warehouse. I'm like, okay. So again, it's November 18th. I still haven't heard anything. So I started asking around. It turns out a couple of mutuals of mine know I don't think he's the owner, but he's clearly the leaseholder on the warehouse that Jeremy is building my DJ table at. And they give me his phone number. So I reach out, and sure enough, as fate would have it, this person is actually one of the people who had gotten back to me with an estimate on the project way back in the early stages. Unfortunately, by the time they had gotten back to me, I had already locked in with Jeremy because, again, he was the most responsive. So, you know, we quickly talked, and I was like, hey, man, I'm really sorry to bother you, and this is going to sound like a really weird request. I know Jeremy is working on a project for me at your spot. He's like, yeah. I was like, I also know he's kind of going through it right now, and I'm trying to get some video content or picture content at this point to do like a cool little like making of thing with this thing he's working on. But I know he's crazy busy, and I know he's kind of going through it with life stuff, so I don't want to keep bugging him. Is there any way you can, maybe meet me there and have me come in so I can just get some footage of the thing? He's like, yeah, does he need to be there? I was like, I mean, it would be cool if I could get like footage of him working on it. That's kind of the point, but I don't want to like stress him out or, rock his boat or whatever. So if he's not there, it's fine. I just need something. And he was like, yeah, sure, man, we can make that happen. He's like, yeah, you didn't go with me on the project. And, again, I was like, yeah, man, I'm sorry. I got slammed with a bunch of different people. And it was just one of those things where, it just worked. He's like, no, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. So I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, just let me know what's good for you. He's like, yeah, I'll call you back and we can set up a time for you to come out. I was like, awesome. I think within about an hour or maybe just later that same day, after I got off the phone with that gentleman, Jeremy finally decides to reach back out. I know. Magical. It's so crazy. What a coincidence. He hits me up and he's like, I'm going to be at the warehouse all week if you want to come by. I was like, yeah, that'd be fantastic, dude. Like, how about tomorrow? He's like, yeah, I'll be here. I was like, okay, cool. So, at this point, there's a few people who are, kind of in my inner circle who I've been updating about the situation. And I let them know, like, hey, I'm finally going to see this thing tomorrow, like whatever state it's in. And they're like, okay, cool, man. I hope it's good. I was like, yeah, me too. So the next day I get a message from a friend of mine who was in the area, who knows all the people. And he's like, hey, man, your boy was up at the warehouse super early this morning. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, Jeremy's been here like since like 8 or 9 in the morning, like parked. So I think he's in there working. I was like, okay, cool. Like, that's awesome. I hope he is. I hope, that means I'm going to see some real progress today. So I get off work. I text him around 4. I was like, hey, man, I'm going to start heading that way. And he texts me back. He's like, yeah, man, I just got here. I'm like, okay, cool. I was like, well, I'm headed that way. Mind you, this place is not close. For me, it's like a 45-minute drive with no traffic. And now I'm going through rush hour traffic. So, Houston. So I get there. I knock on the door. Nobody answers. So I go in and I walk to the back of this warehouse. And I like to think I have a pretty decent poker face, but oh my God, I'm pretty sure my face betrayed me, because what I saw was absolute dog shit. When we had first talked during the we're gonna line out specs for this thing, I had told him that in addition to the final thing needing to have wheels, this thing needed to support a minimum of 200 pounds because gear, cables, cameras, adapter, like all the things that go into like, this and streaming and all the things, it's got to do that. When I tell you I walked up, and again, feel free to reference the Dropbox picture or the Dropbox link. This thing looked like it had been slapped together with scrap wood. There were pieces of it. Now, I want to preface this with saying I am by no means a master woodworker. I am by no means a fabricator. However, and a lot of you know me well enough to know what I'm about to say is true, I know enough about building things that I can look at something and tell, A, are there issues with structural integrity? B, how much time has gone into this based on what this person's skill level is? And C, get a pretty good idea on the estimate of cost of materials used. When I tell you what I saw had internally my jaw on the floor. This looked like someone who knows their way around a saw spent about 3.5, 4 hours chopping up and slapping together scrap wood. it was a mess. There were pieces that were clearly supposed to be a single piece that were hodgepodge together. And again, feel free to go look at the pictures in the Dropbox. And again, jumping back to that comment about how much weight this thing was supposed to support, Jeremy tells me, hey man, I found casters that'll support up to 400 pounds, but I'm going to make sure this thing can support up to 2,200 pounds the way I'm going to build it, because I want you to be able to stand on it like they do at festivals and stuff. And I'm like, okay, bet. When I tell you what I saw, this thing doesn't look like it could even support the weight of the gear. It was that jaw-dropping. The wood literally looked like he had taken bits and pieces from scrap projects and just sort of cobbled it together. I was floored. I didn't say anything. I just kind of walked around, took a bunch of pictures, and just sort of like, He's like, yeah, man, like, we're really working on this, gonna get it locked in. Like, I've got a good place now. Like, we're gonna keep it locked, or focused. And now that I'm in a good place, and and so, I looked at him and I looked at the thing, and I'm like, okay. I was like, here's the thing, man. I know you've been going through some life shit. I watched it unfold firsthand. Okay. And I understand life cannot be fair, and life sometimes has a tendency to kick you in the teeth when you're already down. I've been there. I think there's not a single soul on this earth that hasn't gone through some shit, right? And I'm usually pretty cool about rolling with stuff like that. But you got to communicate with me, man. Like, you can't ghost me for almost 2 weeks when you haven't given me any kind of progress at all. And he's just the whole time just staring down, like doing that thing that, like little kids do when they know they're in fucking trouble because they've really screwed up. He's like, yeah, man, I really appreciate, like, I know you've been patient. I was like, look, man, I think at this point, it is no longer a request. I need progress pics every week. I'm not asking you to do it every day, but I need photographic or video progress updates every single week. And he's like, okay, man, okay. I was like, now, again, I'm going to ask you, Jeremy, what is a realistic time frame for this to be completed? I want you to tell me. Like, I'm not, like, the whole time, every single due date that has come and gone with this thing, you have set. So you tell me what a realistic time frame is. And he's like, well, I really wanted to have it done by Thanksgiving, but I don't think that's realistic. Thanksgiving was like a week away at this point. I'm like, I agree. I don't think that is. So he goes, so let's say December 5th. I'm like, okay, December 5th. He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's say the following week, December 14th. So that gives you an extra week of buffer to get this knocked out. He's like, yeah, man, like I said, I'm locked in now. Like, we're going to really get this knocked out. He's like, I told you before that I lost some supplies because my roof rack broke and I had to take on some jobs to make some more money to buy those supplies. And I'm just like, I know, man. And again, like I said, when you communicate things like that to me, I'm usually pretty cool about, like, trying to work with it, but you got to communicate. You can't just ghost me, you hear what I'm saying? He's like, yeah, man, again, just like looking down, not wanting to, like, make eye contact. So I shook his hand. I was like, all right, man, keep me updated. Let's get this thing done, and I'll be back on the 14th. I leave. I got one batch of progress pics from him after that. He didn't give me any Thanksgiving week. I didn't really press because, it's a holiday week. But he did give me some after that. And the progress pictures were essentially the exact same state that it was in when I was there, just with some extra sheets of plywood laid on top and some more cut pieces laid to the side. It was literally the exact same state. So December 9th, I shoot him a text. I was like, hey man, just checking in. Are we still good for the 14th? And he tells me, yep, we're still on point. I've only got one more day of gluing left. I'm like, okay, cool. I was like, can I see a progress pic? Because I still haven't seen one since the first batch you sent after my visit. No response. Nothing. December 14th. The due date is finally here. Again. This is now the 5th due date, mind you, that he has set every single one of these and missed every single one of these. I at no point told this man, I need it on this day. It needs to be done. Da, 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 da. Like every time a date has been set, he has been the one to do it and miss it. So December 14th, I hit him up and I'm like, hey man, do I need to get a truck? Like what's going on? He's like, man, the weather's been really bad for gluing and finish, and you know, it's just it's really been shit for that. And I'm like, okay, but the crazy thing is, the weather had only been bad for like a day or two. It's been 3 or 4 weeks, almost a month at this point since we had that conversation. So in my brain, I'm like, does this man? He clearly has a smartphone. What does he not check the weather and plan accordingly? I'm confused. So I asked him for another due date. Like, all right, so what are we looking at? Because you told me there was only one day of gluing left a month ago, and now it's not that? I don't know. Are we moving back in time? How is this working? Nothing. No response. December 15th. Texted him again the next day. Hey man, I didn't hear back from you. Can we get a revised due date and you know, some sort of update? Nothing. No response. December 16th. I'm now doing this daily. Like another, hey man, can we get another due date? Like just some sort of timeline here, something. And he's like, gluing's going well and progress is being made. I'm like, cool. What are you thinking for an end date? Like something. No answer. So December 17th, I hit him up again. I'm like, hey man, I need an ETA. Like, and a progress pic. Like something, bro. Come on. And he goes, every time I send you a picture, you have some negative comment or doubtful response that slows me down, believe it or not. So I'd appreciate it if you just let me finish this project without any more interruptions. Now, I'm going to pause here and tell you all to go to the Dropbox and take a look at a screenshot of a text message of me to him. And in that text message, there's a picture. It's part of the batch of one of the pictures he sent that was from the progress where it was the pieces of plywood just laid on the same fucking thing. And I circled some things. And even in my message, I was like, hey, man, it could just be the angle of this picture. So, you know, please just clarify. I'm noticing that the wood in the bin where the gear is actually going to be sitting, it looks kind of thin. Are you sure that's going to be able to support the kind of weight that we've been talking about? But also, I'm noticing there's a glue seam going down the whole length of that trough. And, you know, internally, I have some concerns. One, is that glue seam going to hold under that kind of weight? But I'm also starting to think, well, these are electronics. They give off heat. Heat degrades glue. It weakens it. Obviously, depending on the glue. But the other more direct concern is in the specs for this thing, there are supposed to be vent holes drilled, like vent slots drilled into the basin so this stuff can breathe, you know? Again, very expensive DJ equipment that is electronic, that gives off heat. And the place where those need to go is directly on that wood seam, which means they weren't there in the picture, but if he actually follows the specs and puts the holes where they're supposed to go, he is now weakening that seal even further. I didn't even include all that. I just said, hey, I was just concerned about the seam. Like, is that going to be cool? All I got was, it'll be okay. That was the negative comments and shit that apparently upset him so much that it's slowing him down. So December 17th, he says all that to me about the no interruptions. And we... I replied back to him saying, like, hey man, look, they're not negative comments. They're legitimate questions, Like I'm asking questions for clarification on this because, I'm not about to stick $12,000 worth of gear in something that I'm not sure is going to be able to do what it's supposed to do. So, so we're now mid-December. I tell him, I feel like I've been extremely accommodating, but like I really need a final due date on this, man. Like, again, I'm being firm, but I'm not being unreasonable. I'm legitimately asking this guy to hold to his commitments, which, by the way, he's been in violation of our contract after the first breach. Any protections this man has in the contract have long since expired. Granted, I was operating in good faith the first few times, so an argument could be made that like the conditions are extended because, I approached him saying like, do we need to whatever? But beyond that, there's been at this point at least 3 times after those where he's breached contract and just failed on every aspect of this. So I make a post on Facebook, kind of forgetting that he's my friend on there. And I'm like, hey, does anybody have any experience with small claims court? I don't mention any names. I don't mention any details. And then I get a text from him minutes after that post goes up. And homeboy says, come get it then. I'm like, is it finished? He says, if you're looking for small claims court advice on Facebook, then yeah, it's finished. You can go pay somebody what it's actually worth to make, which is double what I asked for to finish it. I was like, cool. I want all the unused supplies, the lights, the materials, and the receipts for those as well when I get there. I was like, and if it was worth double what you charged, why didn't you charge double? I didn't negotiate the price. You said it. You know what I mean? He's like, I ain't got no fucking receipts, but I have all the supplies for you here now. Wow, I should have thought of that. I guess he was talking about the should have charged double. So, but okay, I'm on my way. And he says, I'll have a document for you to sign that we are free and clear of this deal completely. And if I hear of anything from this, of any kind of defamation, then I'm going to sue you. And I'm not there. I'm finishing work. I'm like, I'm not going to sign shit unless it's finished or I get my money back. Otherwise, we can let this play out in court. You've already breached contract 4 times over, and I've been more than accommodating. He's like, then either wait for it to be done or I'll give it a go. You ain't getting the dash for your money if you go that route. And if you ain't signing shit, then you ain't getting shit. I was like, then give me a goddamn completion date and actually complete it. Jesus, man. And I'm like laughing emojis. I'm like, you think I want to deal with this? I know you don't. I don't either. I was like, look, I'm legit not trying to be a dick here, but take a step back and look at this from my perspective. You've literally changed the completion date 5 times, and I've been cool with it because your life stuff. You have refused to give me a single progress pic until I had to physically go down there and get some myself, and then you agreed to be better about them and communication. And yet, I still have to chase after you. Dates still aren't being met. Like, bro, what am I supposed to do and think at this point? Like, wouldn't you be looking at all options in my shoes? And like, I didn't hear for like a couple hours. And then I just get December 31st, final. I was like, okay, man. Like, this is it, though. I'm serious. I really want this to work. And I'm sorry we had to get a little shitty with each other, but like, the 31st is it. All right? He's like, all right. So I know this is going to come as a shock. December 31st rolls around, and guess what? Yeah. So I text him, yo, man, it's the 31st. Is it finished? And I get the reply, have you been outside the last couple of weeks? It's moving along as fast as shit can dry. All that's left is the light and the panels and the inserts. And at this point, you know, I maybe could have worded this nicer, but again, it's not anything ugly. I was like, Jeremy, you have literally set every single due date we've attempted for this thing. I've never once told you a date. I've always asked you to give me one that's realistic for your abilities, and you've missed every single one. You've told me multiple times, just another day of gluing for at least the entire month of December, and I'm pretty sure you have access to a heat gun or something like that, and if not, you can rent them fairly cheaply. I know, I looked it up. I'm sorry to say it, but like, I made plans for tonight. Remember, it's New Year's Eve. I'm sorry to say it, but I made plans for tonight and tomorrow, anticipating another missed deadline from you. That said, I'll be back this weekend. If it's not done by then, we're going to have to look at alternatives. He finally replies back and says, I've had heat guns and fans on it all fucking week. I've been working on this fucking thing every single day until 4 in the fucking morning. So if you were looking for alternatives, go for it, but you ain't getting the desk or money in that case. It ain't my fucking fault. Even with fans or heat guns, shit ain't drying for more than 2 days. I was like, okay, send me a progress pic. You've already been getting progress reports because you've been going behind my back. Again, because I've been ghosted, so I've been asking mutuals if anybody knows anything. Shocker. I was like, you agreed to send me weekly progress pics when I had to come up there, and you haven't. So yeah, I've been asking around. You've sent one batch of pics since then, and literally nothing else. He's like, stop harassing, insert name of the guy who runs the warehouse. You decided not to go with him, and you can pick it up when you get back and pay the remaining balance when it's done. I was like, okay, cool. See you Saturday. So he texts me Saturday. That Saturday. We're January 4th now. 5 months. Text me, I'll be at the shop around 5:30. Cool. Sounds good. I get on the road because this place is so freaking far from me. At this point, I'm about downtown area, so about halfway there. He texts me, got here early to finish up the panels and such, and the finish not only isn't dry, it's cracked due to the humidity. Would have been ready if weather permitted, which I now read is one of the protected reasons for late completion as well as loose term priorities. Now I've wasted money, materials, and time and have to wait for it to dry, sand it down, and refinish. And I texted, I'm still on the way. He's like, nobody's at the shop. I was like, you literally just said you were there. And he goes, I left. This is an hour before I even said I was going to be there. It was not an hour. It was like 20 minutes before we said we were going to meet. I was like, well, I just drove all this way. Can I at least see it? And he's just like, well, I need to sleep, and that's a priority for me right now. So he sends me a couple of pictures. Now, I will be the first to say there is leaps and bounds of progress in at least the outer appearance of this thing. And he sends a close-up of the humidity damage that he's got on the finish. And it raises a few alarm bells for me. Again, feel free to check the Dropbox. On that image, you can see that not even looking at the stuff he's claiming is humidity damage, you can see how rough and unfinished that surface is that he has sprayed down with paint or whatever that is that he's got on there. Also, I showed this. I'm in a group chat with a lot of fabricators and builders of things. They're not local. It's sort of everybody all over the state and the country. Otherwise, I would have gone with them for this thing. And they all kind of agreed that, like, hey, man, I deal with that kind of stuff every day. That's not humidity damage. That's heat damage, which pretty much Which pretty much summed up a suspicion I had, which was this thing was nowhere near being done. He did get there early, like he said, but it wasn't to put finishing touches. It was to hurry up because it was really far behind, and he overblasted it with the heat gun. That's heat damage. That's not humidity. That's heat damage. And he goes, here's how it's going. So, and I replied again. I was like, bro, I literally just drove almost an hour. Can you just meet me there and let me see the thing? Like, I came all this way. I'm not going to keep you long. And he replies, you bullied me into rushing with the threat of a lawsuit, which I now read wouldn't have held up at all. And now shit's fucky, and I've had very little sleep rushing this thing, and I'm in no mood to deal with anything, and I'm gone, and I'm not coming back until probably tomorrow. So, again, I replied, I was like, I didn't bully you, man. I asked you to set your own realistic deadline and actually keep it. He's like, yes, and weather permitting, it would have been held. It'll be done as soon as it possibly can. Everything is going well with it other than the finish reacting to climate. And trust me, I want this thing done as soon as possible, as perfect as possible. So I said, I'll be by tomorrow. Get some sleep. Also, I know our communication has been pretty tense as of late, but I happily will admit it does look really good with the progress you've made. I'm trying to throw this guy a bone. Constantly, just trying to be professional and courteous for this whole fucking thing. So I didn't even go back the next day. That was Saturday. Fast forward to Wednesday, the 8th. It's like, where are we at on progress? He's like, I got all the shit sanded out of it. It's been slowly putting the finish back on. It's drying really slow, and I got to be careful not to fuck it up again. It's pretty much smooth, and I can and about ready for final coats, but I got to wait for the weather to cooperate enough for me to put those final coats on. It's like, okay. Again, not even going to attempt to ask for a due date. I think that ship has sailed. Have you started the cutout for the lighting panel? I'm just curious to see if any part of that is done, so we can dry run test it and make sure that, you know, it lights up consistently like my coffin does in the reference pics that I sent over before you start permanently attaching. That way we can make any adjustments that need be, and you don't lose time trying to correct something after you've permanently fitted it. He's like, the panel is cut. I just haven't glued it into place. I was going to install the lights either tonight or in a couple of days and dry fit the clamp panel for testing purposes. I was like, thumbs up. Cool. So I messaged him, I guess the next day, or no, it was still the same conversation. So I tell him, hey, I know we've been back and forth about the pics video, and I know that's a real sore spot, but for the lighting panel, it is imperative that you send me pics and video of the dry fit with it lit up before doing the final attachment. I have to make sure that it's the same color, brightness, and consistency through the whole thing. Otherwise, it won't work with the green screen stuff camera and defeats the whole purpose. I'm not being shitty. I just want to stress the importance of this piece in particular. He's like, cool. I'm like, okay. Feels like maybe we're making some progress here. Like, you know, no shitty back and forth. Like, okay. So Saturday rolls around and I get this set of pictures from him. It's the table. It's lit up, you know, with a loosely the front panel thing kind of loosely hanging on there, a dry fit. And he's like, it looks like there might be a few shadow points. I can go in and clean up and even it out before setting the panel, but it looks nice and even. And I was like, yeah, it definitely needs to be consistent fully. Can you send a video, like, you know, kind of zooming in close so that I can see it? I was like, sorry, that came out jumbled. Can you video it close up, moving over all of it so I can see it close up? So he texts me a video, and as we all know, you send a iPhone video via text to an Android, it's going to look like pixelated dog shit. And that's what I got. He said there's a couple shadow points I can get rid of, but otherwise consistent. I was like, I'm sorry, man. The text makes it super pixelated. Can you email me the video and a couple of other pics with the different color modes? And thank you for the updates. It's looking good. I can email you what I've got now and the rest later. Heading out for a bit, but coming back later tonight. He emails me all the pictures, which again are the warehouse lights completely off. The only thing lit up is the green light from this thing. And mind you, they look like, even that looks like it was taken with a potato phone. So again, not being shitty. It was just very poor quality, lighting and otherwise. And so I said, okay, like you said, let's see how those shadow points look once you address them. But yeah, looking good. Okay, sounds good. Send over what you've got and send the rest later. Appreciate it. Sunday, I wake up. I've had some time to think. And so I text him. I was like, hey, I thought about it last night after looking at the pics again and the shadow points. I think it's best if once you've addressed the shadow points, I come in person with a small camera set up and we can test out the green screen chroma thing before you do the final attachment panel. That way we can work out any final issues if there even are any. So just let me know. And he tells me, well, as it was never originally specified to be a green screen, I'm just going to make it as specified in the original agreement, and that's it. It'll be consistent through the light panel, and that's the best I can do with it. Now, again, feel free to access the Dropbox. We absolutely did discuss it being used with a green screen. Again, it's all in writing. And in the reference pictures, you know, in the blueprints for the thing, it's all there. So I replied back, I'm like, it's not a green screen. The specifications are that it's got to have the same consistency of lighting and color through the whole thing, so it will work with a green screen. That's why I gave the reference pictures in the current DJ coffin, because it does the same thing. The whole point. He's like, it'll be consistent throughout, but I'm not going to sit there playing with it and tweaking things over and over and over again once it's done. I was like, right, I'm not asking you to. I'm just saying, let me come and check it for the consistency before you do the final attachment. I'm not asking you to do any kind of overhaul or rework. You know, I can even bring some gear and we can dry test the well part, because part of this design was to have these little inserts that cover the gear, so it's like a nice flush mount, and different configurations. Because obviously right now I have 2 CDJs and 2 turntables, but I also wanted the ability to have that same smooth finish for 4 CDJs and a mixer instead of the 2 turntables. And that's what he's referring to, or what I'm referring to when I talk about the dry fitting that. He's like, nah, dude, I'm fixing shadows and visual issues and I'm running with it. That sounds like something that comes with the $3,500 table. And now he's tipped his hand, because it's clear that he has spoken with the warehouse dude that he essentially, I guess, is his landlord, because that dude's quote was very close to that number. The difference between that dude and Jeremy is that dude owns laser cutting, CNC machinery, like all that, and he can justify that price tag because he can churn it out in 2 weeks, not 5.5 months. Anyway, moving on. I was like, Jeremy, he's like, if you want to renegotiate final price, then that's possible. And at this point in my brain, I'm like, what planet does this guy live on that he thinks if we renegotiate price at this point, it would go up for any reason? So I text him back again, still trying to be the olive branch here. I'm like, Jeremy, I'm not sure if tone is getting lost in the text, but I'm genuinely not being shitty with you. When I come to get this thing, I'm going to be bringing gear with me to make sure things fit and testing functionality before we settle up. I know you've said you've burned a lot of hours on this, so I'm just trying to offer any help or assistance I can to prevent any further avoidable hiccups. That's it. I'm not casting doubt on you. I'm not being mean. I'm just trying to get us done. That's it. And that was this past weekend. And then shit decided to really go sideways. I have some mutual friends, that I'm in a group chat with doing nerd shit. And we were all talking about games and whatever. And somebody made the joke about, I have this thing that's going to crush this other thing. And I'm like, I'm about to crush this fucking situation with this DJ booth. And they're like, what are you talking about? So I started describing the situation. Didn't use any names. And one of the people in the group chat was like, wait a second, this kind of sounds familiar with the warehouse part. You're not talking about insert person's name. I was like, as a matter of fact, I am. They're like, oh my God. Like, who's the guy who's giving you all the problems? And I'm like, his name's Jeremy Smith. He's like, oh my God. I was like, do you know him? He's like, oh yeah. We then have a, sidebar and begin talking outside the group chat. And I give him the whole lowdown, the absolutely batshit crazy story that this has become. He's like, so like, what do you want to do? Like, what are you hoping to happen? And I was like, honestly, at this point, man, like, as much as I would love this thing to get finished, based on what I've seen, the one time I've seen it in person, when I saw like the frame of this thing, it's really bad. It's really bad quality craftsmanship. The fact that he is so angry every time we have to communicate or deal with anything, I feel like he's going to not do good work because he's rushing to get it done, because he's got it in his head that like this is now an adversarial relationship. I was like, and frankly, the comment he made about that sounds like something for a $3,500 table, I feel like he's got it in his head that he's vastly undercharged me for this, and he's talked to insert person's name about the quote he was going to give, and feels like his thing is now worth that, when in reality it's not. His shit was cobbled together with scrap wood and slapped together with glue and just random pieces of whatever, and it's a piece of shit. I'm just gonna say it. It's a piece of shit. And frankly, I've shared the pictures that I had to take of the framing of the skeleton of this thing with all my contractor friends. They have all said the same thing. That looks like 3.5 to 4 hours tops of rushed grabbing pieces of scrap, slapping it together, and trying to get something visible put together. That's shitty work. And they're like, obviously we can't judge the quality of the materials, but just looking at it, 50-50. He's like, man, that really sucks. I was like, yeah, so I don't know. Part of me wants to see this through purely for the story at this point and see if there's anything salvageable out of it. But the other part of me is just like, I feel like this dude is gearing up to try and like piss me off to the point where he can just sell it to somebody else to get what he thinks it's worth and screw me out of my money. That's my opinion. That's the vibe I'm getting with this situation. So he's like, well, I know insert person's name. Maybe I can talk to him. I was like, well, that's the problem. So the first time that I had this conversation with insert person's name, way back when I was asking if he could meet me about the camera and everything, that conversation was purely about that. It was just, hey, I'm just trying to get some footage. That was the first time I spoke to that person. About a month and a half ago, we had a second conversation after my visit where the disrespect from Jeremy in our messages was starting to ramp up, and I was getting concerned. So I contacted this person. I was like, hey, this is going to be a kind of a weird request, but can I pay you a consulting fee to go look at his work and give me your professional opinion on the structural integrity of this thing? I have some concerns. And he, to his credit, I get it. He's trying to back his boy. He was like, Jeremy is like, he works very differently. Like I work in like computer CAD and like laser cut precision and da 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 da. Jeremy's more like classic woodworking. Like he's really good at what he does, but like I'll be the first to admit, like Jeremy kind of operates on Jeremy time and his own little whatever. You got to really know how to activate Jeremy and da 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 da. Just like really kind of trying to like sell Jeremy and the vibes. And I'm just like, look, man, I get that, and I'm not trying to I'm not trying to fuck anybody's shit up or cause problems, but again, this thing is supposed to hold over $10,000 worth of equipment. And when I ask a single question, apparently he takes it as offense and gets combative. And now I have concerns that my shit's getting, poor quality or at worst sabotage. I was like, can I just pay you a fee? Like, we'll conduct this as business. That's all it is. To just go look at it, give me your professional opinion. And he's like, I'm going to be honest, like, we do things very differently. I've never had any problems with Jeremy's quality of work. He's like, I really think when this is all said and done, you're going to like the quality. But he's like, yeah, I'll be the first to admit, this is like, if you would have gone with me, you would have had this shit in 2 weeks. And I'm like, again, a decision I'm regretting daily. He's like, but I want you to rest easy. Like, when it's done, like, it's good. And it's like, if you still have concerns about like stability or whatever, he's like, I'll hook you up. Like, I'll do some reinforcing on it, but I really don't think you're going to have those problems. So I'm like, okay. So that was the second time I talked to this person. The third and final time I talked to this person was the day I was driving to go pick it up and had that whole conversation with Jeremy about I'm not there anymore and blah, 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 and you bullied me and da, 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 da. I called him up again. I was like, hey, man, are you busy? He's like, yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of like 4 different projects right now, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, sorry. He's like, no, what's up? I was like, are you at the warehouse? He's like, probably not the one you're asking about. Like, what's going on? I'm like, I hate to even say it, just more of the same. I'm supposed to meet Jeremy there. Jeremy has flaked at the last second. I'm already halfway there. I don't suppose you're anywhere even close. You can let me in to see this thing. He's just like, nah, man, I'm not. And, I'm not even going to be there at all today. And to his credit, he was like, I'm going to say this with all due respect. Like, you didn't go with me on this project. I don't have any dog in this fight. Like, I don't want to be involved. It's not my deal. I think at this point, you're just going to have to coordinate with Jeremy and deal with Jeremy. Like, he's like, if it's something like I'm already here and I just need to, let you in to look at something, sure, fine, whatever. But like, as far as like getting sucked into this like middleman thing, like I'm out. Like, y'all need to deal with this. And I was like, you know what? That's fair. That's valid. I apologize for, dumping this in your lap. Moving forward, you won't hear from me. Those are the 3 times I talked to this guy. So, jumping back to the conversation where my buddy's telling me, hey, I know this guy. Do you want me to talk to him? I kind of update him on what's happening. And I let him know, like, I don't want to approach him anymore. He's made it very clear, and respectfully so, I will say, that he doesn't want to be involved in this. That said, I know we have a lot of mutuals, and because he's been so respectful about this whole situation, I want to reciprocate that. So I was like, if you can just let him know, give him just a quiet, discreet sort of heads up that at this point, I'm probably going to be filing charges in civil court, small claims court, on Jeremy. And that that means the only address I have for him is his spot. So at some point, cops will come and knocking. Obviously, they're not there to do anything other than serve him paperwork, but cops will be coming at some point. So just, I would hate to be blindsided with something like that, in my home or my place of business. So again, out of respect for, him and the situation, I was like, just give him a heads up. So he apparently does that. And then this person, insert name, reacts not great and starts making phone calls to other mutuals trying to get my phone number, which he already had it. I guess he forgot. And he calls me, and he sounds like audibly upset. Now, mind you, I've never met this person in my life. I've only had 3 conversations with this person on the phone at this point. So he calls me up. It almost sounded like he was manic. He was just mile a minute, like, what the fuck's going on? Da, 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 da. Like, I thought like we had this fucking solved. Like, I don't know what the problem is. Like, I'm looking at your shit. I'm at the warehouse right now. I'm looking at your shit. It's like almost done. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, what is going on? Just it's so close to being done. You're gonna get what you want. Like, just you gotta let Jeremy cook and da 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 da. And like, I'm like, bro, let's just stop. Let's just stop for a second. Number one, I want to tell you that I appreciate how respectful you've been and how professional you've been about getting sucked into this. And number two, I want to apologize for this landing in your lap, like directly from me to you. And yes, I know your homie told you that I was going to file on Jeremy, and that's probably going to involve cops. I asked him to, out of respect. Now, I haven't fully decided to do that, but I'm about 99% there. He's like, what the fuck? Like, you know, I thought we talked about this. You're like, you know, Jeremy's slow and da da da. I was like, again, bro, the issue is that Jeremy's been cooking, like you say, for 6 fucking months almost at this point. Like, I don't know what's left to say. Like, I get deadlines sometimes shift, and that's cool. I've been cool about a lot of them, especially with all the crazy life stuff he was going through. But like, the problem now is not only we have no deadline, I'm getting just out-of-pocket disrespect from this guy for no reason other than me asking questions or asking him to give me deadlines that he just never keeps. So he's like, what do you, like, I don't understand. Like, what do you want? What do you want? I was like, I either want my money back or I want this thing finished. Like, I'm not, like, he's like Jeremy's gangster, man. Like, he's so good at what he does. And I was like, bro, you're not the first person to tell me that. I've heard from multiple people that when he does the work's great. The problem is doing the fucking work. We have been on this 6 months now. Or excuse me, almost 6 months. I was like, bro, I'm gonna tell you like I told Jeremy. I could do this myself. The whole reason I hired someone was because, like you, I am extremely busy. I have multiple businesses, multiple irons in the fire, multiple personal things going on, and what I didn't want to do was add yet another project to my plate. So I said, let me go out, support somebody local, have a professional, what I thought was, build this thing, and it's a win for everybody. And that has turned into a nightmare scenario. And so this guy was just, again, I understand the position he's in. He's like frantically trying to like squash this because no business owner wants to deal with this. Like, it's a pain in the ass. And he's just like, bro, like what? Just come to the, like, what are you doing today? What? I'm like, I'm working. Shocker, I know. And he's just like, just come to the warehouse. Like, look, just come and look at this. He's like, you got FaceTime? You got FaceTime? I'm like, no, I don't have an Apple. I'm an Android guy. I know, come for me, whatever. He's like, okay, look, like, I was like, I don't even know you. Like, let's just all take a big, like, breather and, like, hard reset and, like, reintroduce, like, you know, I'm, insert name, like, you're Matthew, like, let's talk, like, what can we do to get this thing? And I'm like, bro, I just told you. Like, I want this thing finished or I want my money back. Like, homeboy has been in breach of contract at this point 6 times over. Like, I can go tomorrow and file in court, and it's a slam dunk. He's come at me with his logic about how the weather humidity somehow exempts him from deadlines, and it's like, no, the weather clause in the contract is, you know, acts of God flooding out your studio or a tornado or whatever, not you chose a poor venue to do this project that didn't have climate control. Like, and again, I've been in your facility. It's nice. But, like, Jeremy has a smartphone. He can check the weather. He can do the things that he knows are going to be weather sensitive and plan accordingly. The whole, like, the weather's been shit. Like, half of December felt like spring. It was sunny. It was dry. There was no humidity. There was no rain. And he was going on and on and on about all the businesses he does and this and that, and it's just like every time we would try and have a discussion about the Jeremy situation and I would try and give him some context, he would kind of cut me off and be like, honestly, I don't care, man. Like, let's just figure this out. And I'm like, well, if you don't care, like, what are we having this discussion for? So, again, I'm really trying to be fair here to him. I get it. He was stressed. I'm stressed at this point. So I agree to meet him. I go down to the warehouse yesterday. He's there. We go in. We have a quick little chat. Again, it's sort of just part 2 of the very long phone call about all his businesses and all the things he's doing and the tens of thousands of dollars and da 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 da. And I'm like, that's great, man. Like, cool. He takes me on a tour of the facility, like, appreciated, but again, not necessary. I've already been there, but I get it. Like, this is the first time we're meeting. For all he knows, I could be some psycho, like, about to go postal in his spot. So he's trying to be, like, hospitable and de-escalate. Like, I get it. I'm the same way. So no harm, no foul. I got no beef with this guy. So he takes me over to the DJ booth. And mind you, again, this is the first time I've seen this thing outside of the potato pictures I've been sent from the other night where it was complete dark and all that like you'd see is the like light up thing. And again, I understand he's trying to like back his homie. He's going on and on and on about how Jeremy's this master wood craftsman guy and like his quality, like he's like, I know the timelines are fucked, but like his quality's so good. Like I could have built this for you in 2 weeks, but like you wouldn't have gotten this level of quality. And while he's saying this, I'm literally staring at the LED strips that are going into this thing that are going to be behind sort of like that white plastic thing that you see here, the equivalent for this thing. And like they're crooked as hell. They're just not, I mean, it looks so sloppy and shitty. And I'm taking pictures and filming this as he's telling me about Jeremy's quality and his attention to detail. And I'm like looking at it and then looking at him and looking at it like right back, like, really? Are we gonna, like, I get, again, I fully appreciate the fact you're trying to back your boy, but like, come on. Like, as a professional who's supposedly doing all these installations and amazing projects, like, you're gonna look at this and tell me this is attention to detail and amazing. There were blemishes in the wood. The finish was absolute garbage. And especially for him trying to sell me on this as being so close to being done, like almost done, only like 1 or 2 things left to go. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. And again, at this point, please feel free to check into that Dropbox. And there's a folder in there labeled Final Warehouse Visit. All the pictures and video are in there. And you can take a look. Please feel free to zoom in and look at the streaks, the inconsistent finish, the blemishes in the wood, the just absolute garbage tier quality that this thing has been slapped together with. And so, you know, we stand up. I'm done getting all the pictures or whatever. We start walking back. He proceeds to start telling me like, yeah, man, like court is bullshit. Like, let's not do that. Like, you know, cause then, you know, Jeremy works for me for free because, you know, I'm letting him stay with me for free. And like, if you do the court thing, then he's not going to be able for me to activate on my projects because he's going to have to deal with court shit. He's obviously not going to be doing shit on your project anymore. And like, you know, it's just a big waste of time and hassle for everybody. You just got to let him cook, man. He's like so good at what he does. And just, I know the timelines are fucked. He's like, I'll get on to him about it. And I'm just like, he's like, we all just need to calm down and like take the emotion out of it. And I'm like, bro, I don't think you understand. Like, I'm not mad. I'm just done. Like, if anything, I'm just confused because I don't know at what point this thing went so sideways where we went from getting good check-ins to ghosting me to just flat out of pocket disrespect for asking a simple question on literally every time we communicate. He's like, yeah, man, I don't really know what's going on. I was like, I mean, I can show you. He's like, no, I don't care. And that was like kind of like a reoccurring thing was like anytime he would say like, I don't know what's going on. And I would be like, here, you can look. It's not a he said, she said. I would just get, no, I don't care. Which, again, fair. For someone who doesn't want to be involved, fair. So we're leaving, and you know, he's sitting back down and once again just kind of going into all his projects, and I'm like, clearly you're very busy. You know, I appreciate you taking the time to let me see this. Like, this is literally all I've been trying to do for the last 2 months. So I'll leave you to it. As I'm about to leave, he stops me. He goes, "Hey man, do you think you could do me a favor and, like, you know, since I took time out of my day to navigate this thing for you, even if you don't think like you did anything or said anything, can you like text Jeremy and like apologize and be like, hey man, can we start from scratch? Can we start over? And like, I told Jeremy the same thing, and just, you know, like, just like a reboot, like, just let's start over." And like, I don't know if my face betrayed me or what, but I just kind of looked at him like, what? And I even said, I was like, I've already done that. He's like, well, I mean, I don't know what y'all's conversations are. And I'm just like, well, let me show you. And again, I don't really care. I'm like, okay, well, dude, here's the thing. I've already done that, or the equivalent of that, multiple times throughout this process. Because again, like I told you back there, I'm fucking confused as to why I'm getting this pushback. I was like, as a matter of fact, I just did that almost verbatim this Sunday when he got sideways with me again about the whole fucking testing things out. So I don't know what it's going to do to try and do that again. He's like, man, can you just, you know, like, just like, so we can all move forward, you know, like, can you just do that? And I'm like, you know what, man, I think you are right. He's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I think you're right that this is not your problem anymore. Like, I once again apologize for this landing in your lap. Clearly the way it's gone down, it was probably going to at some point anyway, but all that aside, I do apologize for it landing in your lap the way it did. But I think you're right. I think this isn't your problem, and I think me and Jeremy need to figure this out. He's like, yeah. I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, so we're good. And I'm like, we'll figure it out. And that's how I left it. And I drove home in traffic again, 45 minutes one way, and that's with no traffic. So it was an over-hour drive home. I got home and I kind of just marinated on things a bit, and I went back over all the pictures and video I took from my visit, and I thought about it. And I think the thing that just really was just it for me at this point was, if this guy who supposedly is going to sit here and tell me about all these tens of thousands of dollars of projects and cool shit that he makes, and the stuff he showed me was cool. Like, I'm not dogging his work. Clearly the guy is doing something great because he's getting all this business. But if he's going to sit there and, as the saying goes, piss on my leg and tell me it's raining, that pretty much just tells me how serious they're taking this situation, which is not at all. So I called him back and I was like, hey man, you got a second? He's like, yeah, what's up? I was like, listen, man, again, I appreciate your time today, but, you know, I thought about it and I think we have some very, very different ideas about what quality looks like. Because I'm sorry, bro, and I mean this with all due respect, I just don't know how you, with a straight face, can be standing next to me looking at those jacked up LEDs and the wood blemishes and just the absolute dog shit state that thing was in, and sit there and tell me in the same breath about Jeremy's amazing quality and attention to detail, when the LED strips alone look like they were installed by a cross-eyed kindergartner. Like, I'm sorry, bro. Like, that is literally the easiest part about this install. It's self-adhesive tape on the back. And he couldn't even get that right. So, again, I fully respect you trying to back your boy. I get it. Like, no harm, no foul. But, like, this is your courtesy heads up. I'm filing on him. And he got really quiet. And he was like, okay, do what you got to do. I said, okay, cool. Thanks again for your time, and hung up. And that was it. That's where we're at. That's last night, that same night, I also found out that he'd already sold the thing to somebody else. So, my suspicion of of him already trying to find a buyer to buy it for more than what he was charging me is that. So, yeah, legal action's already been started. Going to go after him for obviously the deposit money that I've spent, any court fees, and unfortunately for him, the time that I have spent dealing with this is now going to be in there. And unlike Jeremy, I can document how much money my time is worth, and it's a lot. It's a lot. So, that's where we're at. Again, I really wanted to share this with everyone as, one, a cautionary tale. Absolutely vet the hell out of people. Even if you think you're being excessive, do it anyway. 2, hopefully someone sees this and, it avoids them getting screwed over the same way. I'm not going to speak on him as a human being because I don't know him like that. But I do know how I was treated. I do know how this project was handled. And it was an absolute shit show, and it still is. So I'm sure at some point he'll see this, or friends of his will see this and tell him about it or share, and that's fine. Again, everything's in the Dropbox. It's all in black and white. There's literally no he said, she said about it. It's all in print. I guess the last thing I'll say is this. If you know Jeremy, or you're in any way going to be impacted in this situation somehow or other, and you would like to not be, or you'd like this to just maybe go away because you feel like you might catch a stray or whatever, that's understandable. It sucks. All I'm asking is to be made whole. If I get the money that I'm out, I'm good. I'll drop the court case. I'll even take this video down. And we can all just move on and never have to deal with it again. But if I got to go full court press and I got to take this thing all the way to court, not only am I getting my money back and damages, but there will be so many more of these. This will go everywhere. I will not stop until I have exhausted every legal means to let everyone know what you've done to me, and then I'm sure that'll open the door for what you've done to others. So make no mistake, while this chapter is done, the story is not over.